for starters, how much real estate, Ken, do you own today?
We own about $2 billion, 10,000 apartments, but we bought $3 billion, but we own 2 right now.
Did young Ken ever think he was going to do that?
Oh my gosh, no, of course.
Why not?
Well, I think like everybody, you grow up with a mindset and a bias, based on what you're taught, and you got to punch through those things. And for me, it was a W-2 job.
Right. So I want you to take me back to when you were just simply a property manager. What was that exact moment that you realized that real estate was actually going to make you rich instead of other people, right? You were the property manager making other people rich. What was that fundamental mindset shift and turning point in your life that made you decide, I'm going to become the owner of these buildings, not just the manager?
Well, my parents taught me hard work. I think that was really important. And so I took a job as an apartment manager while I was finishing up school, right? And I went to school on a wrestling scholarship. So I was trying to figure out what to do next. And I moved into this property. I fixed it. I leased it up just like I would have, right? Because I grew up in construction. I did all the work myself. I was cleaning units, painting units. I was renting units. I was doing everything. And about a few months later, after I stabilized it, it's pretty common sense. I was like, it's going to be easier if the place is full than vacant, right? It's less work, and it's going to be easier if it's in good condition. So the owner comes in one day, and he sits down. And by the way, I'm putting the money in the bank, so I'm watching the money grow. And I'm sitting across, and he's thanking me, and he's talking to me about how I asked him questions, just like you do. How much did you buy it for? How much debt you got? All those kinds of things. And I calculated after he left how much it was worth. And it was worth a lot more after I, improved the operations. And I was like, I am on the wrong side of the desk. And that was it for me. I was like, I need to be on that side of the desk. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it.
What did that first step into real estate? You've been a property manager for some time now, but what did that first step into real estate and investing into your own property look like?
So what I did, the first step was actually in property management. I said, okay, what I really need to do is understand how properties work, how ownerships work, how syndications work, how the deals work. Because what happens in property management, in fee property management, is there's all kinds of people out there buying deals, and they need good property managers. So there's no shortage of clients. And so first I did that, and I did that for 7 or 8 years. Because by that time, I had managed hundreds of different kinds of properties in hundreds of different kinds of locations. And you learn a lot, because what happens is the ownership, they'll bring you things that don't have any tenants, or maybe they're full, or maybe they're half full, or maybe they have expense problems, or maybe they have tenant problems, or whatever it is. But you kind of have to go through the grind, right? So I call that my real school, my school of hard knocks, I guess, for real. And then when I finally got through that, what happened is, I started to be the guy that everyone would come to turn around their buildings, which is awesome. And I just started to refine my skill over and over and over. And then when I got to the point where I said, okay, now I need to own these, I started to just look at life a little bit different. Why would I take something from somebody that's broken and fix it for them when I can do that for myself and for my investors? And so that's what I had to do as I moved to that next step.
How did you kind of build that credibility early on? Because, especially like that for that first, investment, even though you have some experience in property management, I'd imagine some of the investors are probably like, well, you've never owned a property yourself. So how did you kind of overcome that?
Yeah, well, it's true. The first one was really, really hard. But, it's interesting. Like when you start to return, when you take something broken and fix it, and then the investors start to get checks, they're like, oh, this is good, right? This is what we're supposed to get. So it all has to do with those quarterly distributions. If the investors get in the quarterly distribution, they love you, right? If they don't like you. And so I just had I had a history of turning those projects around. And so when I would now see a deal, let's say to buy, when I said, okay, I'm going to be on the buy side. I'm going to be on the ownership side. I was getting the term sheets that you do, or the broker packages, and you look at them, and I'm like, okay, those rents are bullshit. Those expenses are bullshit. But here's what I can do with the asset. I can do this with it. I can fix it this way. And here, so most of the things that I bought early on were things that either the seller or the brokers didn't actually even see. And I had the experience now of doing that over all those years. So when I actually got to the other side of the desk, I could see. I was like, okay. Like, for example, I bought a whole bunch of small projects and as a tester, single units, 4 units, duplexes, that kind of stuff. But then when I finally got that first big property, the 182 unit building, which, by the way, I still own. So I still own the first building I bought, the first big building I bought. It was quite simple. What happened was the property was having a tough time renting the units upstairs. And the reason is because it was in a senior community. So, okay, seniors didn't like to walk up the stairs. So what do? Having been in the business, I increased all the pricing on the first floor. I didn't discount the upstairs. I increased the pricing on the first floor. And therefore, all of a sudden, the second floor, because it was priced differently, and all of a sudden, I filled up the property. And just that one little decision grew the value, grew the income, and all that kind of stuff. And we still own that property today.
Many of the entrepreneurs that we've interviewed on School of Hard Knocks, they love risk and they love taking risks. And we always like to say, take the risk or lose the chance. In your career as a real estate investor and property management, all the ventures you've done, what would you say is the biggest risk that you've taken?
Well, I think the most risk is actually having a job. I mean, I really do. Like you have the least control. And also just investing in the stock market or, some of the other things, I think those are risky because I look at things as controllable or uncontrollable. That's it. So for me, I can control a property where I buy it. I can control what I pay. I can control the debt I put on it. I can control the tenant I can put in it. I can control the interest rate, and I can mostly control the expenses. So I can almost control the cash flow. Now the market is the market, and that can change. But I can also control where I buy, which is if I'm buying a really good property in a market that's ascending, then I'm going to be good. If it's declining, I'm not going to be good. So I don't really look at real estate as risk because I don't put a lot of debt on them. I'd rather put more down payment on. I like cash flow, and I have a philosophy of cash flow over capital gain. So I don't sell. That's the difference. I'm not trying to time anything. I know there's going to be markets that go down and up, and I don't want to have to be in that position where I have to sell when it's down. And so that's also why I don't use institutional money from Wall Street. I traditionally used high net worth LPs or accredited because you can exit all kinds of ways. You can exit through sale. You can exit through refinance. You can exit through a recap. There's all kinds of things that you can do with the asset, but you really have to wait until the market's just right. And so sometimes when you're using an institution, they're like, it's time. We want our money back. And the market might be down. So there's a lot that you learn as you start to invest.
One of the things that me and you were talking about earlier outside was that one of the most important decisions that you made was going about finding a mentor.
Yes.
And in particular, our generation, anybody in business that are starting out in the industry, you find that person that's doing exactly what you want to do and learn everything that you can from them. Could you tell us the story about how you found your primary mentor in real estate and what you learned from them?
Well, I think the one thing that I always think about is, who are your teachers? I mean, just in life, right? Like, who are you listening to for health? Who are you listening to relationship advice? Who are you listening